Welcome to Mystery Files, where we take a deep dive into cases that span from the creepy to the truly bizarre and everything in between. I'm Shane, and today I'll be forcing my colleague Ryan to hear all about the gruesome case of Béla Kiss, the vampire of Czinkota. In the end, you'll have to decide if the mystery is solved or if it's simply a mystery.
So what are we talking about today?
It says right there on the screen, Vampire of Czinkota.
Yeah, but we can't be talking about vampires because vampires aren't real.
No, it's not a real vampire. It's just a murderer, you know. All the trigger warnings for this one. This one's murder, guys.
A little true crime then.
A little TC for the freakos, you know?
Well, I mean, you're the guy holding the pointer.
I guess I am.
Hello, it's Professor Morris Ashley, and welcome to my bar. That's right, I'm a bartender now. I make yummy cocktails on the Boulevard of the Stars. And thanks to today's sponsor, Scentbird, I've been able to snag this gig and the self-confidence to really crush it when it comes to making drinks. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service with a mission to empower each and every person to express themselves through scent. It's super affordable, allowing you to change your fragrance every month while avoiding the commitment and cost of pricey, full-size bottles that can range from $300 to $500 American dollars. It also has a diverse, curated collection of over 900 fragrances from popular brands like Prada and Versace, as well as niche labels such as Parfums de Marly and Roja. This month I'm trying out Confessions of a Rebel's F Mondays. Ever since I started wearing it, I've got a new swagger in my step, I think you'll agree, with lively citrus notes and a mix of peach skin, apple, sage, and sandalwood. I feel invigorated to make the best drink for my customers. I'm also enjoying the scent of Mind Games Shadow. Am I flirting with you as I make a delectable espresso martini? Who knows? But this makes me smell sweet like pomegranate and mandarin and bold like leather and patchouli. And yes, I do feel spontaneous and free. A little tip I've learned, applying fragrances to your pulse points like the wrists and behind the ears allows scent to interact with your body heat, enhancing its longevity and projection. Express yourself with a new fragrance or two each month. Scan the QR code or use 55 Water to get 55% off your first month at Scentbird. You can get the first fragrance for just $8, and then the next month it'll only be $16.95. Again, that's 55 Water to get 55% off your first month. I better get back to work. I work at a bar, remember. I've made a drink. Does anyone want one?
In the early spring of 1912, in the lazy...
1912?
Yeah.
Holy shit. It's a long time ago.
That's when the Titanic sank.
Why do you know that so quickly?
It's an easy date to remember. I don't know. It just sticks in there. 1912. Titanic. Boom. Down. Gone. In the early spring of 1912, in the lazy Hungarian resort town of Czinkota, a small hamlet on the outskirts of Budapest, life was simple when a wealthy 40-year-old tinsmith named Béla Kiss and his beautiful young wife, Marie, moved into a large, somewhat isolated house just outside of the village. No one suspected something dark was on the horizon.
It's an unfortunate mustache he's got there.
I think that might just be the shadows at play. You
Oh,
were
I
thinking it was a Hitler thing?
I thought it was like a Hitler stash.
I'm sure people were sporting them at this time.
And then he kind of ruined it.
He ruined it. Like you and orange beanies.
Hey, look, man.
So I didn't mean to compare you to Hitler.
I was about to say, that's kind of a light comparison of me to Hitler.
To be fair, the First World War was also darkening on the horizon, and worsening economic and political conditions had long been at the center of Hungarian social life. A massive population surge in the late 1800s caused major unemployment by the turn of the century, and those who were able to find work for starvation's wages were mercilessly exploited. The onset of war could only make conditions worse.
Any photo I've seen of this period, it's hard for people to look like they're having a good time.
This lady's happy about her baskets. Look at that smiling face.
She doesn't look, she looks like she's pouting. What are you talking about? She looks like she's carrying everything in her life. It looks awful.
Yeah, not an ideal time to be alive for
No.
a lot of people. So when a shy stranger moved into the largest house in Czinkota and went out of his way to help take care of the impoverished, the sick, no one questioned him or where the money came from. Béla Kiss was a short, introverted man, but with his distinguished black handlebar mustache, he was said to be a considerable presence amongst his peers. His wife, 15 years his junior, was known for her good looks and for being a bit of a flirt. Sounds like a nice guy, right? Showing up
Sure.
to town with his pretty flirty wife.
Yeah, moving
And-
into the biggest house.
Looks like a guy you could trust, right?
That does not look like a guy. I
What do
can
you
trust.
mean? A white guy?
With a slick back hair and a mustache? At this time period? Yeah. I'm running, dude. I'm not going anywhere near this guy.
Reportedly, Kiss was jealous of any who sought his young wife's attention, greedy for her beauty. He forbade her from having male companions, but Bela had to travel to Budapest often for business or personal affairs. In his absence, Marie found companionship with an artist named Paul Beccari.
That second bullet's a little misleading. When you say companions, you mean like friends?
Yeah,
Okay, that's bad.
companionship.
But if it's like, I forbid my wife to have an affair, that's like, not really a fair bullet point. Like, I think that's kind of
Yeah.
like the whole point of marriage, right?
That's only something you'd have to say in like France. That's
But
true.
yeah, you can't be saying no.
That's what
no
those
male
French
friends.
are like, you know that? The small town was shocked to learn that on Christmas Eve, just 6 months or so after moving into the country estate, Marie allegedly gifted Bela a note that was the kiss of death. She had left him and run off, far away, with her new artsy paramour, to Mr. Kiss.
Oh, Jesus. I felt like I smelled that.
It's probably oats and coffee.
I could tell.
What would you do if Mari gave you a letter like this that said, Ryan, I'm leaving you forever?
Yeah, so I guess I'd read the letter.
Bit of a blow.
That's a bummer.
Béla Kiss was bereft, so ill with grief that the town constable Adolf Trauber sent an elderly widow, whom some sources have identified as Kalman or Miss Jakubets, to live at the house to take care of Bela. His health recovered enough that he only needed help with cleaning, but there was one room that help was always forbidden from entering. Obviously, nothing could set off a nosy old biddy more.
They just sent an elderly widow from the elderly widow service. Where did you said it like it was normal. They sent him an elderly widow
What else is she gonna
from an
do?
elderly widow lineup.
Sit around and get wrinkly? You know,
Yes.
you gotta go take care of a man.
So I guess when you become elderly and then a widow, it's like, here's your broom. Now go
Things were
take care of
different.
this man who's drunk at 12 p.m.
Different place, different time. Yeah,
This guy's no good. He's like forbidding his wife from having friends. It's probably why she cheated on him. And then also
Certainly.
has rooms that people can't go into. No one knows where his money's from.
You know, him saying to his wife, you can't have any male companions. And then she's like, well, what about this hunky artist over here? I don't think he's learned his lesson with saying, don't go into this room.
Yeah. You can't be telling people what to do.
This guy doesn't understand human psychology very much, I don't think. And so, one day, the housekeeper's curiosity finally got the best of her, and she peeped through the keyhole of the forbidden room. And there she saw large metal drums organized against the wall.
So she's elderly, she's a widow, and she's curious.
Is that ticking all your boxes?
Yes.
For an eligible...
That's right. Is she available?
She assumed they were carrying moonshine, and the rumors started spreading. The constable eventually had to get involved. When questioned, Kiss explained to the constable that the barrels were in fact filled with fully legal petrol rather than illegal alcohol. As an enterprising businessman and speculator, Kiss was counting on gas prices surging in the upcoming war and was stockpiling now to be able to sell at a huge profit later. The constable was assuaged, and needless to say, Kiss got rid of the help entirely not long after that. But even before he sent Kalman packing, Kiss was already becoming more reclusive to the close-knit townspeople. Most days he was spotted in his car heading to Budapest alone, only to return in the wee morning hours when the roar of the engine was sometimes accompanied by the mirthful laughter of a female passenger. At one point, prior to firing her, Kiss was even said to have sent the elderly housekeeper on a paid vacation so he could bring a woman to live with him in sin. By the time Kalman returned, his lover had departed, and shortly after, she claimed an additional barrel was delivered to the Forbidden Room.
Now there's 5 barrels.
Multiple barrels
There
happening
used to be
here.
4. Now
Now
there's
there's another one, and isn't that interesting? And there seems to be a correlation between women and barrels. Women and barrels, you know?
Oh no!
Meanwhile, in Budapest, there were growing reports of women having strange and dangerous encounters with an unknown predator. Louisa Rust, daughter of a well-known draper, met a man at the theater. He took her driving to his country house for drinks, followed by dinner in the city, where he offered to read her fortune at his flat. Sounds like a pretty sexy night, I don't know.
I got an idea what that fortune's gonna say.
Oh boy.
It sounds it's a barrel on that fortune in that future.
There, he gave her a cocktail that made her feel off. She fainted, and when she awoke in the park at dawn, her money and jewelry were gone.
At least she's alive.
At least, you know, he only just stole. If you're gonna be a criminal, just steal people's jewels.
Just steal their jewels.
Just steal their jewels.
Don't kill them.
Rubies, jewels, diamonds, you know?
Yeah.
3 weeks later, a similar occurrence happened to the wife of a wealthy merchant. She was nearly run over by a taxi after church, pulled gallantly away at the last second by a man who introduced himself as jeweler Franz Hoffmann. They bonded over spirituality and a passion for fine jewels. He persuaded her to join him at his flat, where he attempted to strangle her over a cocktail. She lost consciousness. When she came to, now surrounded by police in a public location, not a single piece of her jewelry remained in sight. He really was pretty clever about gaining her trust. He saved her life. She almost got hit by
yes. She almost got
a
hit by
taxi
a taxi
after
yes.
church. What if he paid the taxi to try and hit her?
That would be crazy.
That didn't even occur to me till just now.
That would be the weaselly thing to do, and this guy does seem like a weasel. Also, attempted to strangle, it seems like he did.
Yeah, it seemed like it, yeah.
Didn't attempt to, he did strangle.
She lost consciousness and then he took all her jewels. Both women allegedly described their attacker's flat identically, but couldn't locate it because he'd taken such a roundabout path to bring them there. 2 weeks later, a third woman came forward with a similar story. In tiny Czinkota, suspicions hit a breaking point. It seemed beyond coincident that there were a few sightings of Béla Kiss with women who were never seen again. After 2 Budapest widows seen at Kiss's country estate disappeared, notably after taking their entire life savings out of the bank, the constable was forced to pay him another visit. Bela explained a man named Hoffmann allegedly invited the women to Hoffmann's place, urging the police to follow up with him instead. When they arrived at Hoffmann's flat, he had already vanished. It seemed a murderer was on the loose. But so was the outbreak of war, and it had arrived even in the pastoral Hungarian hills of Czinkota. Like many of his countrymen, Béla Kiss was called to enlist. He secured the country estate with iron bars in the windows and set off for the front lines. This was the last the town would ever see of him.
Oh, wow. Oh, so he just straight up, wow, that's
He's
crazy.
gone, he went to war.
Damn.
And it sounds like he didn't make it back.
I wonder if he showed them his jewels.
Do you think he went off to war wearing a bunch of beautiful jewels?
That's right.
Are you suspicious of this man? I mean, he's just going to the army.
I mean, we'll see if he ever made it there.
18 months into the war, Bela sent a letter to his next door neighbor, a Serbian immigrant named Littman, who was overjoyed to hear from his old friend. But Littman's response was returned unopened 4 months later, along with a note informing him that Bela had passed away in a hospital near Belgrade. By 1916, other townsfolk had also learned of Bela's death after seeing his name carved into a war memorial. Right around the time resources to feed the ever-growing war machine were growing more scarce. Now, I've been right about one thing: the war effort desperately needed petrol, and they had begun commandeering it from civilians. The commissioners who came to Czinkota were pointed to Bela's abandoned estate by those who remembered the curious metal barrels they'd gossiped about years before. The constable, who could confirm the barrels held petrol, brought the soldiers to Bela's house, where 7 drums remained.
That means that constable that first paid Bela a visit way back at the beginning of this story, when Bela was like, oh, those barrels, that's petrol. He didn't open one of the barrels to see that it was in fact petrol?
They're probably sealed shut, you know?
This guy's the worst detective of all time.
When they opened the barrels, they were disappointed to find what appeared to be wood alcohol instead. Then, they were quickly horrified. to find that beneath the surface were bound and folded, colored, naked female bodies. Now, some say that one of the drums held Paul Beccari, Marie's artist lover, that she had allegedly run away with when she left Kiss, calling this entire origin story into question. Was his wife buried somewhere on the property as well? It's a fair question, right?
Yeah, that is fair.
The artist, the hunky artist, in a barrel.
Yeah, folded up. That's,
He got folded.
Jesus Christ.
Now, allegedly, some of the victims had puncture marks on their neck, and the bodies were drained of blood. Some speculate that the blood draining was to keep the corpses from rotting, as its basic embalming practice. But it didn't do much to deter from popularizing Bela's new nickname, the Vampire of Czinkota. Resources for local law enforcement were scarce with the war just outside their doors, but the determined Detective Nagy was put on the case. Behind a heavily locked door, he managed to find all the evidence they needed to close that case. An office full of books on poisoning and strangling, and a desk full of letters exchanged with women that Bela had lured to their death through newspaper ads. I don't know why you would need a book on poisoning or poisoning.
Poisoning, sure, you gotta concoct the poison. Strangling feels pretty self-explanatory.
Just a picture book?
Just a picture of the Wolfman, just strangling people.
One of Bela's advertisements read, quote, "Bachelor, aged 40, lonely, good income from commercial enterprises, desirous of corresponding with educated lady with a view to matrimony." Kiss reportedly received 174 marriage proposals and accepted about 74 of them.
Jesus Christ, this guy was swiping left and right. There was no picture of him attached to this? He got that many hits off of just this sentence?
Maybe back then that's all it took, you know?
I guess
educated, I got money, don't worry about it.
That's right.
Would you like to marry me?
That's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
Update your Hinge profiles.
Bela would romance women in their homes, assessing their vulnerabilities. For example, if they had family or friends that would notice if they went missing. Most didn't meet his requirements to move on to the next step. Instead, he might just convince them to send him money and then disappear. But roughly 20 of these women made the journey to Czinkota to meet their terrible fate at his hands. He even convinced people to send him money. He was like, "I am a wealthy bachelor. Wouldn't you like to marry me?
Give me your money."
Give me your money. I too have a passion for money. Please send some to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Women were lured to Kiss's Budapest apartment. After poisoning and strangling them, he would steal their valuables and bring their bodies to Czinkota, where they were preserved in the alcohol-filled drums until they were buried outside. Detective Nagy reportedly contacted the drum supplier and learned that far more than 7 barrels had been delivered to the Kiss household, leading to excavation all over the property. Prisoners of war were tasked with uncovering the rest of the bodies, which were exhumed in the garden and woods surrounding Bela's home.
That's a strange little detail in this case. Not only are these cops bad at their jobs, they're lazy. They're like, I don't want to go search for these bodies. It's going to be gross. Let's make the prisoners of war do it.
They did a lot with prisoners of war back then. They just made them do stuff, you know.
Yeah, look for bodies.
Ultimately, it was believed that Bela killed at least his wife, her lover, 23 other women, and another man. Of the 26 bodies found on the property, 14 were identified. Let's be clear, this is a bad guy.
No, I don't think you need to say that when his picture is next to those bullet points.
This is a bad guy.
I mean, I could have told you that. The mustache.
No good, piece of shit.
The mustache from the beginning.
Yeah, you did call it. One woman was said to be identified by her wedding ring, which she had absconded with, as well as with a small fortune, when she left her husband to run away with Béla Kiss. Though, because her husband had also died in the war, the police did not pursue her case further, which was, all in all, the general tactic that law enforcement took.
You can't just cut to a picture like that, go full screen without warning me. That was jarring.
So this allegedly is Bela at war.
This is the guy, the Casanova that's luring all these women to his apartment?
I mean, I guess if you get rid of that mustache.
Come to my apartment, I have jewels.
He does kind of have vampiric qualities to him. It was solved. The culprit was already known to have died in the war. There were too few resources and not enough time for more justice than had already been served. But then something strange occurred. People began to report seeing Bela in Budapest. Detective Nagy's work was clearly unfinished, and he needed to know. How in the hell was a dead man traipsing around the Queen of the Danube?
I mean, I suspected that maybe he never went to war. Then I saw this picture of him
Clearly.
At
I've
war,
never seen
so-
such a soldier.
Yeah. If the last thing on earth that I saw was that mustache, I'd be so sad.
It'd be very sad. Okay, let's get into the theories. It's theory time. We have no fun activities for this one. It's a story about women in barrels, so.
Yes.
Theory time. Hey, look at that, it's the theory board.
I knew
Wow!
I was just about to say that looks like the theory board.
No, I said, yeah, no, like, hang on a second. It's a theory board over there?
Oh, that is a theory board.
Okay,
All right.
let's get into them. Theory one. It was a case of stolen identity.
Look at that guy looking at that headline right
He's like, no, hang
Stolen
on a minute.
identity. What's going on right
So that's a nice hat, huh? Anyway, you can see we got a lot representing the theory here. Some maps.
Walk me through it. Walk me through it.
Nagy reportedly traveled to the Serbian hospital where Kiss was said to have died. The nurse and hospital staff who treated him were shocked that the sweet young man they had known could be capable of such atrocities. They described their patient as a tall, blonde, blue-eyed Nordic type, rather than the short, swarthy, middle-aged, mustachioed man known to Bela's compatriots. Huh?
That's not
That's
him.
not
That's
him.
not him.
Short, dark-haired,
No mustache. No blue eyes either.
no blue eyes, dark eyes.
Detective brain.
And so, it was supposedly uncovered. Kiss may have swapped papers with a fatally young soldier named Makari, who had died shortly after.
So maybe he did go to the war, but then he saw an opportunity.
Exactly right. He did a Don Draper.
Because he knew back home, bet you they found my barrels.
Some believed that rather than make an easy escape, Bela had returned to Budapest using the young soldier's papers to tie up loose ends. Though, once authorities had access to his stolen identity, they found no trace of Bela in the country. Some believed he had fled to another large European city, probably London or Paris. And officials across the continent were alerted that a mass murderer of Bela's description was on the loose. Witnesses came forward to claim he had been spotted again in Budapest in 1919, while by the next year, there were reports spotting him from Romania to Turkey. What do you think of that one?
I mean, it's pretty compelling. It seems like that's what happened.
He seems to be a clever fellow.
A slippery guy.
Yeah, a weasel, if you will.
Sure.
A dirty weasel.
Hey, look, once you show you're capable of strangling people and putting them in barrels, I think you could pretty much do anything that's horrible.
Strangling's a lot. Yeah.
a lot.
I mean, like, I feel like it's one thing to shoot someone with a gun,
Yeah.
but to strangle them is a lot.
You prefer the gun then, when you do it.
Based on my experiences having done both. Theory 2, he joined the French Foreign Legion. Rumors and reported sightings from both sides of the Atlantic continued to fuel the legend of Béla Kiss. However, the next solid lead on him was said to be at least 5 years later, when a man enlisted in the French Foreign Legion told the Parisian police that while deployed, a soldier named Hoffman.
That was the name of he gave the police
That's right.
to go look at Hoffman.
Look at this little
I
mouse.
wrote that down in my notes.
Did you?
No.
Oh, write it down now.
Hoffman.
Good.
Dustin Hoffman.
No, you're getting that wrong. That's a different guy. A soldier named Hoffman had spent long nights in the desert entertaining their fellow comrades with stories of how he had once loved like a true Lothario and strangled beautiful women throughout Hungary.
He included the second part in his tales?
Yes,
And then the rest of the guys were like, hell yeah.
I guess
That's incredibly odd.
if a friend comes to you and brags about something like that, don't wait until a detective comes knocking on your door several years later and then go, oh, you know what, I guess
He did say that one time in the desert that he had strangled a bunch of women.
Right, just go tell people about
He actually
that.
gave me a book about it.
Right. Hey, I'm done with this one. I know this one front to back.
If your friend tells you that he's strangling women, you read that book and then you strangle him.
Yes,
That's
exactly
how it
right. Word got to Detective Nagy that details in the stories matched the Kiss case, but by the time he contacted the French Foreign Legion, Bela or Hoffman had already disappeared.
is. Slippery into the night.
Yeah. I mean, this almost goes hand in hand with these two things because he could have fully taken someone else's identity and gone over to
it
the
could
French
be a
Foreign Legion.
subset.
Yeah. On to theory 3. Béla Kiss escaped to America. In 1932, a New York City detective named Henry Oswald was sure he spotted Béla Kiss in Times Square. But before he could pursue him, the figure vanished into the crowd. Some say they were able to trace Kiss to a Manhattan apartment where he was working as a janitor, but when police investigated, he had disappeared yet again. On both sides of the pond, Béla Kiss was never even close to getting caught, and no further murders could be attributed to him. But as murky as his ending was, the legend itself is also up to interpretation.
Can you flip his picture around? I don't like looking at his face.
You don't like that? I
don't
can
like
turn him
looking at
around.
this. Yeah, it's
What if he was on the other side? I'd be like,
oh, Jesus! His haunting eyes.
Put that
There
down.
we go.
Yeah. Bye-bye. There are many conflicting reports on the case and very little consensus as to what is fact and what is lore, with seemingly many details lost in translation as the story passed from a deeply aggrandized small-town scandal to a case for Interpol. Well, in the face of a war that redefined warfare for the modern age and the collapse of an empire that had stood stalwart for centuries, for a small Hungarian town, the case of Béla Kiss was both the scariest thing they had ever faced and as transient as village gossip. The murders of dozens of women so nearly went unnoticed and forgotten as the world burned in the fires of the Great War. As it stands, their killer went free, never to be sentenced to justice except for, perhaps, by his maker. But where did he disappear? Well, that remains a mystery.
Wait. Oh, no.
That's it. He got away with it.
Why isn't he caught?
Because he's too slippery.
God damn, dude.
Yeah.
He probably died of old age somewhere.
I mean, all three of these things, frankly, could be true. He could have done this and then
I was
that,
about to
and
say,
then
he
that.
could have done all three of them. Unless he actually was caught and you're about to tell me right now.
He got us. No.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Truly, the freakiest thing about this is that they almost did not uncover it at all. If they hadn't gone looking for petrol, maybe they never would have known.
That is true.
And at the very least, here in this modern era, we can say, hey, fuck you, Béla Kiss, you know?
Yeah, Béla
fuck this
Kiss
guy.
my ass,
Yeah, exactly right.
God, I hate this guy.
Guess we throw our hands up on that one and just say, that sucks.
Highly upsetting.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you next week when we revisit a case that you may be familiar with.
It's D.B. Cooper.
It's D.B. Cooper. Is there late-breaking information on him?
Oh, just
Yeah?
you wait. Just
Oh,
you wait.
boy.
You're going to
Okay.
be in this chair, and I'm going to be
makes sense.
standing right there.
I know, we're gonna switch places.
And we're going to burn that guy's photo.
Yeah. All right, bye everybody.
A big thanks to Scentbird again. Scan the QR code or use 55 Watcher to get 55% off your first month at Scentbird. You can get your first fragrance for just $8, and the next month it'll only be $16.95. Cheers! Welcome to Mystery Files, the show where we talk about mysteries and put them in filing cabinets.